1,000 years before year 1, 2,000 years before year 1, 3,000 years before year 1. So if we take 1 away from 1, do we get nothing? A big fat 0? Well, yes and no. The year 01 AD or CE is the year that is commonly accepted as the year Jesus was born. However, despite the fact that the BC era was not created until the year 525 AD, historians use BC and AD to describe events that happened before the year 01 AD. These civilizations are usually referred to as the 4 cradles of civilization: Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, the Indus Valley, and ancient China. If we want to describe the time period in which human civilization began, it makes more sense to talk about the time before 01 AD rather than the time before the year 525 AD. Mesopotamia is located in the area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is today known as Iraq, Kuwait, and Turkey. Egyptians are famous for building the pyramids and for worshipping pharaohs, who were both religious and political leaders. No empire existed with dominion over large parts of the world. Similar to Mesopotamia, Egyptians kept livestock, farmed the land, and developed sophisticated irrigation systems. They standardized weights and measures, built roads and canals, and were largely responsible for the creation of the Great Wall of China. Some believed that humans had free will, while others believed that their destiny was predetermined by fate. The most important building was the temple, which was dedicated to a particular god or goddess. They traveled long distances to trade goods and often had to walk barefoot. Their diets consisted of vegetables, grains, and fruit. They were superstitious and believed that ghosts and evil spirits could harm them. They usually lived in small villages and had a strong sense of community. Education was valued, and children were taught to read, write, and perform arithmetic. First of all, life was not necessarily primitive. Many of these civilizations were highly advanced and had a sophisticated understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. Finally, life was not easy. People had to work hard to grow crops, raise livestock, and make their own clothes. Other important buildings included the palace, which was the home of the ruler, the city hall, where government officials worked, and the marketplace, where merchants sold their goods. Cities also had sophisticated water systems, including aqueducts, which brought water into the city, and sewers, which carried away wastewater. They also had paved roads, and many of them had a grid pattern. Cities also had legal codes to maintain order and protect the rights of citizens. They were also skilled astronomers who recorded eclipses and constellations. They had also developed several tools such as sickles, spades, and hammers. They also invented several writing systems. Cuneiform was the first writing system to appear around 3200 BC, followed by hieroglyphics in Egypt around 3000 BC. The Phoenician alphabet was invented around 1050 BC, and the Greek alphabet was invented around 800 BC. These writing systems allowed humans to keep records, communicate over long distances, and preserve their history. Another common feature was that they believed that all natural phenomena were animated, meaning that they believed that the world was full of spirits. Many of their rituals were therefore directed towards appeasing these spirits. The Egyptian kingdom is usually divided into 3 periods: the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. During the Old Kingdom, Memphis was the capital, and the pharaohs were both religious and political leaders. During the Middle Kingdom, Thebes became the capital. Empire reached its peak during the reign of Mentuhotep II. Some of the most famous pharaohs ruled during this time, including Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, Ramses II, and Cleopatra. These bones contain the earliest known Chinese writing. Other discoveries include early Chinese tools and weapons, as well as early Chinese art. It was followed by the Babylonian Empire under the rule of Hammurabi. His grandson, Ashoka, converted to Buddhism, and the empire became known for its tolerance and nonviolence. They were followed by the Assyrian Empire, which was known for its brutality. Capital was in Nineveh. Ancient Egyptians invented hieroglyphic writing, and they kept detailed records of their activities. The earliest civilization in Mesopotamia is the Sumerian civilization. They developed the world's first writing system called cuneiform around 3200 BC. They developed the world's first known legal code and the world's first known temple. Mesopotamians are also responsible for some of humanity's greatest inventions, such as the wheel, the plow, and bronze and iron tools. That's a very broad time frame, so we are only going to cover the major developments and the big picture stuff. Unlike the Mesopotamian and Egyptian civilizations, much less is known about the Indus Valley civilization. What we do know is that the Indus Valley people lived in cities that were carefully planned and laid out with sophisticated drainage and water systems. Unfortunately, we don't know how to read their script, so much of their history remains unknown. For example, we won't discuss any wars or rulers that only had significance for that particular region. When Pope Gregory VIII introduced the current calendar in 1582, the years before 01 AD were still called the years of Christ's life. At this point, humans have been around for at least 2 million years. Humans live in small groups of around 50 to 100 individuals. Their diet consists of fruit, nuts, and meat from animals they hunt. Fire was discovered and controlled somewhere around 1.5 million years ago. However, its use didn't become widespread until around 10,000 BC. They speak an unknown proto-language, and they create cave paintings like those found at Lascaux in France. Their social structure is tribal, and their belief system revolves around animism, meaning they believe that all natural phenomena such as mountains, rivers, and trees have spirits. They bury their dead and have a vague idea that the dead live on in another form. Now, it would have been very confusing to count backwards from the year of Christ's birth. Therefore, these years were renamed from the years of Christ's life to the years before Christ. However, this is an approximation. The period after 01 BC is known as AD or CE, No Domini, or Common Era. Maybe we will even learn why we use BC and AD instead of BCE and CE. Let's go. 1 is correct. But no, because the number 1 doesn't have any special meaning in itself. But what does that actually mean? What did life look like back then? Our calendar is based on the Gregorian calendar, also called the Latin calendar. And although most countries follow this calendar system now, other cultures follow different calendar systems. So let's clarify our terminology. The period before the year 01 AD is called BC or BCE, before Christ, or before the Common Era. What's important here is that the numbers in BC are negative numbers, so there is -1, -2, -3, and so on. Now, it's also important to remember that the people who lived in BC didn't call it BC. They didn't even know they were in BC. The civilization arose in the lower Nile River Valley and the delta in what is now Egypt. So in this episode, we are going to cover the timeline from approximately 10,000 BC to 01 BC. The Chinese civilization developed along the Yellow River and became known as the Yellow River culture. But enough chit-chat, let's time travel to 10,000 BC. Welcome to prehistoric times. However, around 3500 BC, everything changes. First civilizations are born. Across the world from Egypt, we have the Indus Valley civilization. In summary, during this time, most of the world was still pre-literate, meaning that they did not have a writing system. One common feature among all these civilizations was religion. All of them were polytheistic and believed in gods of thunder, sky, sun, rain, fertility, and the dead. During this time period, some of the world's first empires began to emerge. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamia, the Akkadian Empire was established by Sargon of Akkad. This was the first known empire in history. In India, the Maurya Empire was founded by Chandragupta Maurya. Another common feature among these civilizations was technology. By 01 BC, humans had discovered and mastered several technologies that greatly improved their quality of life. Mathematics was also highly developed. The Babylonians were particularly skilled mathematicians who used a base 60 number system. But what did cities look like at this time? Cities were usually enclosed by high walls and contained several important buildings. Unfortunately, outside of these 4 cradles of civilization, very little was known about the world. The common person lived a hard life. If you enjoyed this episode, you might also enjoy our episode on life in the year 1. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.